What is up, everybody? I've got another great interview with you tonight. I've got Awen. We're going to talk about primal druidry. We're going to talk about weightlifting. We're going to talk about transformation. We're going to talk about that strength energy, how we can get more of it. So, I would tell them where they can find you. Tell them all of your socials and all of the different shows you've been on and things like that, and we'll get right into it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to talk to you. I've been up since 5 a.m. I feel like I live at the gym, so sorry in advance if I'm a little off. But basically, I go by Primal Druidry everywhere. I have a mostly hate, love-hate relationship with X. So like I'm on there, but I'm not. I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm mostly in person. Like I love teaching like the bulk. I'm trying to force my Luddite heart to like get online again because I love just teaching in person. So most of my stuff for the past couple of years, it's not that I'm not around. It's like I'm at the local witchy store. I'm at a pagan festival. I'm somewhere talking about druidry in real life, and I'm like reforming the St. Patrick's Battalion, which is my cute way of saying like most of my personal training clients are Mexicans or Celtic descended people. But that's a whole other story. Anyways, primal druidry everywhere. I can rant about anything, so feel free to bring up anything specific you want to get into.
Well, let's take it from the basics. How do
Beautiful.
we bring about transformation in our lives? That would be motivation, right? That motivation, that kick, that first thing that gets you out and makes you do something. How do we get that energy into our lives to take that first step? First step is so vitally important.
For sure. So I would say that if there are, and this is partially my piecing this together, if there are any principles in Druidry, and we have no commandments, nothing like that, just gathered from across the lore and the legends and history, it would be honor, hospitality, and inspiration. So when we talk about motivation, I would look more at that sort of inspirational quality of like, how do we travel the realms? How do we do anything from astral travel to creating on the physical to anything? It's that life force energy, that vitality, which is kind of the only thing I will label myself as these days, is just with vitalism, because I think that's really what matters. Like you are either aligned with that life force or you're not. So how to get into that? It has to be, forgive me to start off being a hard ass, but it has to be worth it to you. It just has to be worth it to you because if it's not, there is nothing I say or, do whatever that's going to force anyone to do anything. But you can simply exemplify like what you believe in rather than just like, a whole lot of this, which is why frankly, when I'm offline for long stretches of time, it's because I'm trying to get jacked or I'm like trying to teach people in real life. Because I'm like, wait, why am I just yapping? Like, why am I navel gazing? So I think to sort of longhand answer your question, do anything but navel gaze, like do anything but fixate and spiral, like just live real life and thrust yourself into that, if that's a good
Well, I
start.
got something for you. Do you know where we get the term navel gazing from?
No, hit me with it.
The the Orthodox Christian Church. They
No
have a form
kidding.
of meditation. Yeah, they have a form of meditation where they're staring at their navel. Let me look up the Greek term for you for 1 second. It's so hilarious. It's like this
Bless them.
is what Christians are always saying about us. It's like it's navel gaze. Come on, really?
And in definition, oh Lord, I tend to get along with certain Orthodox types, but that is extremely funny to know. Yeah, that's all done.
Yeah. Now, Orthodox Christian navel gazing does come from a Greek pagan practice that has to do with the omphalos. The omphalos talks about the place where Earth is tied to the heavens. This is the navel of the universe, right? And so, by
Fascinating. Yeah.
by under, by understanding your roots, you can then get in touch with the divine. And that was the
Yes.
original idea. This is why at Delphi you have the omphalos where Zeus releases two eagles and they fly over the whole world, and where they cross over the navel of the earth. And that was at Delphi. So this is where this is connecting the earth to the heavens. And that's why you have the oracle at Delphi right there. But it's not exactly the same thing in the Christian tradition where you're just repeating the same prayer over and over and over again for 15 or 16 days. as you're looking at your belly button so that you can have a revelation. That's
Right.
not the same thing, you know? You got
One wonders.
right. But
Yeah, that's
it's
where I love. Oh, please.
well, I was going to say it's about values and reflection, right?
Yes,
There's no good reason to be bored, right?
strongly
If
agree.
your values are not in line with reflection, that's when you need to make a change. That's when that boredom starts to kick in and saying, hey, you're supposed to be doing something right now. And you're like, but
Yes,
I don't want to be doing something right now.
right.
That's the conflict. That's the boredom.
Yeah, I mean, boredom, God, like this is maybe like a sort of hopefully not terribly boomery take, but like this endless, the doom scrolling shit, the everything, like this sort of weird liminal space that people have in between true boredom, which can lead to real inspiration, which can force you to get off your ass to do something. So you're like, fuck, like I'm supposed to be in action. To have all these buffers between ourselves and that is just like you have to rip yourself out of it, or you're just forgive me, you're not gonna make it. Like you're just it's we all know what that looks like. So yeah, as sort of I kind of touched on before I think we started recording, like in the Celtic lore and the legends, it sort of indirectly points to the theme of like you are better off getting heartbroken, getting dogged, suffering immensely than kind of just sitting around doing fixating, spiraling, hoping someone will come along and save you. Like that's not what it is. So we have to do that for
Right.
ourselves, whatever that means.
There is that option of not chasing, right? We don't have to
Sure.
chase. We can segment our own lives and we can move in our own directions, and whatever finds us on that path, that's what finds us on that path. But it's up to us to start making those changes so that we can move in that direction, as
Yes.
opposed to, well, looking for something that maybe might not be the thing to fulfill us. Like, these are fillers. And
Hmm.
when we get into the rhythm, again, this would be the second principle. The first one would be motivation. The second one would be rhythm, right? So
Right.
how do we move from that original inspiration, that original motivation, into the rhythm?
I mean, straight up, not to be too on the nose, but just discipline. Like applying yourself to something that you understand is more important than your comfort. And not completely, I'm not like Ms. Jocko, whatever. I'm not saying completely throw away any regard for yourself. That's not quite it. But discipline has to take priority over personal comfort, over just having like your routine should be built on your values. So like whatever comes out of that is going to exemplify, and forgive me for getting, I'm just going to be super fiscal for a moment. I keep seeing it like kind of go around the sort of fitness sphere that like, your body is a receipt of your habits. And that's not a condemnation. It's just saying straight up, like you physically embody what it is that you value. And mind you, I'm someone that I don't necessarily think that everyone in the world has to be the same archetype. There are some people that are just blessed. They're born to be autistic wizards and rock on, and that's their gift in life, and that's what they're supposed to excel in. And these people are not going to be at the front lines of any battle, but they're out there in the tower and they're doing what they need to do. So, as much as I think you should push yourself out of your comfort zone and start striving for things that are objectively at least productive and sort of setting you on the path, you do need to have some self-awareness of like, what is my nature? How can I maximize strength from what I actually am? Because just to be super simple, also, like, I'm a woman and I'm happy to be strong as a woman. If I compare myself to men, it's a recipe for extreme disappointment on my
Right.
end, and also just insanity and all kinds of, so I'll leave it at that. But I will say something I really like is to sort of bring it back to the legends again. Some of the most prolific demigods, human heroes, what have you, they start their journeys just kind of being apprentices, just kind of going on these quests where they're off to help some old druid or they're off to like learn how to fight, and they get thrust into these situations where they place themselves in that flow of action, of inspiration, and that's when things start kind of just happening. So not everything has to be the sexiest day on earth. We are going to have filler episodes, but if you're on the path, then that's what matters.
Well, on my journey, what I found is that everything you do can actually bring in the divine. and it takes the attempt to
Hmm.
connect what you're doing right now to the divine for that spark of
Hmm.
God or the eternal to move into that space. So what are
Hmm.
some of the ways that you can bring the divine into weightlifting or any of these other things that most people see as mundane and
Hmm.
physically oriented? Actually, that's actually boosting the spark of the divine.
I'll start.
Oh, hold on. I think your mic went out for a second. Go ahead
Oh
again.
no. Okay. Can you hear me?
You're good. Yep.
Okay. There's a ton of places to go with that, and I'll start with, so I'm huge on ordeal. I'm huge on like physically confrontational experiences, and part of that is it sort of, you choose to do it, right? But like you are being viscerally thrust into an altered state. So to voluntarily harness, okay, this is going to hurt, this is going to suck. I'm going to be sweating, and just if you're doing it right, like you're not going to be in a necessarily happy state the whole time. So to voluntarily take that on and harness it into, you have to kind, I feel like anyone who is serious about exercise or lifting or what have you, you have to have something beyond "I wanna look good." And I don't know, if you've read, there's a great essay, by Henry Rollins, of all people, actually, called "Iron and the Soul," which very much directly touches on this sort of alchemical quality to lifting. He's Iron and the Soul, where he talks about, how taking on something like that will expose you for what you are. And if you are purely arrogant, vain, you're going to be exposed for being, maybe a billboard at best. But if you have true strength, true integrity, it can transform that out of you and make it physical. So that's a long way of saying, um, I feel like that ordeal quality, I'm fully embracing it and not trying to make it something other than it is. Um,
Exposure
that is,
therapy.
yes, absolutely. And that sort of, from a trance perspective, a way to like actually reach ecstatic states and trance and what have you, is to do something that is very repetitive and kind of just like you're in the zone. Like it takes a degree of focus, but you can kind of you can literally trance out. That's where things get interesting. So you have that ordeal quality, you have that willingness to suffer, and then you have like, okay, my body is kind of physically invested in something, so my mind can be a little more receptive. And personally, I do evocations before every single session. Like I devote, so my lifting is my biggest devotional offering to my patron goddess. She's a goddess of sovereignty and warfare. So I think it's pretty direct,
Oh,
the
you're on
connection.
it. You're on it. So let's talk about your patron goddess then. Let's talk about her
Happy
qualities.
to.
What's her name?
So my patroness would be the Morrigan. I love teaching about her. There's so much to get into. She's fascinating because, I mean, obviously I think that because she's my patron, but people love to say that she is a goddess of battle and warfare, and I feel like it's not wrong, but it's short-sighted because that's a means to an end. What she really encapsulates is sovereignty, is dignity, is like having the guts and capability and connection to the divine. We can get into all that to actually have ownership in your own life. And she is sort of that feminine spirit that like she's not going to be the one that's bossing everyone around necessarily, but you need her to like give her favor or you're not considered. There's this whole concept of like, just of like force versus power, as it were. And to have that feminine sovereign force give her blessing is what separates the two in Irish mysticism, at least.
What I find across the board in pre-Christian pagan cultures is that there is this deceptive simplicity
Mm-hmm.
that pagans would transmit to each other. And it's so much deeper than just the few words that they give to these things, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what you would be describing would be like Minerva in Roman culture and Athena
Mm-hmm.
in Greek
Mm-hmm.
culture. And they're talking about the wisdom of warfare, the wisdom of getting into a place where your body and mind are in perfect synchronicity, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the wisdom. That's the feeling that you're sort of it's a feminine idea in
Mm-hmm.
all of these different cultures. So
Mm-hmm.
is there receptivity there, because when they're talking about feminine and masculine, they're talking about projective and
Mhm.
receptive. So there is a
Sure.
receptiveness that they're looking to achieve by combining both the body and mind into a rhythm of not only warfare, but Athena was also the master craft. She was the master sewer, so she would sew these
Mm.
magnificent things because it was combining both the mind and the body into a single action that then produces that state, that transitive state.
Right, and I think you really hit something on the head there with that sort of that symbol of weaving is so like integral to sewing magic. And like the Morrigan is very like if one was a little simple-minded, you could say she's masculine in that like she really is revenge, war, sex, magic. Like it's she is to make it sound overly simple, I suppose. Like she's kind of the original black cat with the golden retriever, whatever husband, you can say what you want. Her consort is very he is not a puss. He's absolutely not a puss. He's not what I would call weak, but she is the one that's sort of willing to sit in that ecstatic, dark, like eye of the storm kind of combination and have that strategy that you need to win wars. And he's kind of this is what I find fascinating about the Irish sort of pantheon and the Celtic gods is like the male deities aren't who aren't war gods, they're not weak. Like they're capable, they can be warriors, but he's very much like, I'm here to eat, have sex, have children. I'm like an earth force. I like to go back to that vitality, that sort of nurturing, but not in like a not in a diminishing kind of way. So I like the sort of complementary back and forth that they have there. But yeah, that's its own thing.
Well, it comes down to the primaries that the Europeans were dealing with, right? So
Hmm.
for the Europeans, I think the primaries were like beauty and strength, right? That's
Hmm.
why everything was broken down into male and females, beauty and
Sure.
strength. So
Sure.
beauty is like this is the thing on the altar, this holy thing up above that is
Mhm.
is aspirable, right? And for
Right.
strength, this is like these are the things that have to be built around that thing for you to
Yes.
aspire to that.
Yes. Yeah.
So in a
That's what
lot of
makes it
ways,
possible.
right, right. And a
Mhm.
lot of people miss that. And it's very, very obvious in Eastern mysticism, but it takes a
Mhm.
little bit more contemplation for you to see how that applies to the Western mystic tradition.
That's true. I think, I mean, this is kind of the funny thing too, is that I feel like, and mind you, I'm not the biggest Christian hater in the world, but where there really needs to be a lot more, I think just awareness around like, okay, if you are going to call yourself pagan in 2025, obviously I've been walking this path for over a decade. I'm in it for life. I'm very happy. However, there's a lot of people who very obviously like have not considered how they're bringing Abrahamic or Christian sort of like modes of anything from worship to prayer to every mental model that they have. They maybe replace the name Jesus with Odin or whatever, but they're doing the same thing. So they to have people keep like making all this or simply going for the most contrary thing they can imagine. That's where I just frankly I don't care to participate in a ton of like current pagan conversations unless I really like the person because who cares? Like they don't have anything to contribute. I'm
Well,
sorry. Yeah,
you're teaching, right? So you're teaching, it's not your job to debate, right? And so I think
precisely.
for you it's poetry. Like you have to
Yeah,
get people
yeah,
involved in the poetry of it because it's the
yeah.
poetry that creates that self-development. And we've lost it. Where's the poetry nowadays? Where is it?
Absolutely. And it's really it's something maybe intentional, but it's definitely something that you say poetry specifically because in Druidry itself, poetry is such a potent to talk about inspiration and motivation. It is such a potent force, and I every time I teach, try to point out like it is not cute rhyming words in the Hallmark card. That's not what poetry is. Poetry is that powerful shamanic, like ordeal driven sort of experience that makes you able to not only, travel the other world and speak to the dead and speak to the gods, but to more importantly, not to just like, again, not sit around navel gazing, to like, what is the good of being psychic and knowing all this stuff if you don't take it back to your people, back to your community, making it story, because the druids wore so many hats historically. They were the storytellers, they were the shamans, and they were also like settling marital disputes and like mediating the law. So to take all of that experience, that poetry is that, again, you could say alchemy. Like we talk about the sort of iron alchemy of like lifting and weightlifting, but then there's that emotional, purely internal transformation that to be a druid, it is a it is the path of priesthood. It's not to just like sit around being like, I'm so smart. Like, forgive me. Like, it's not to just be like, wow, I'm a genius. It's there's people that need help. There's people that need mediating. And that's not to like save everyone in the world, but your tribe at least.
Right. And, you know, from poetry, I think it goes to song, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
once you've got creation under rhythm, which would be
Mm-hmm.
poetry, and then you add frequency, which would be the
Mm-hmm.
song.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand those three elements and how they play out together, that's when your words can have power with your community, because the
Mm-hmm.
song is so vital to raise. I mean, I don't know, everybody's had this, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
sensation of the tingles on the spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes along with the sounds of the song. It reaches across boundaries and it causes physical reactions within the body, you
Mm-hmm.
know? That is such a beautiful thing that now your song can now apply to people who have different values, different emotions, different reactions, but then they
Right.
can feel exactly what you want them to feel. So I
It's
think
huge.
song is like that third, yeah, that third branch.
Absolutely. And I think for the most part, so like I've been doing ritual, like group rituals publicly-ish for the better part of like 10 plus years. And there is a time and place for like a very solemn working. There absolutely is. But I think for the most part, a ritual without song, without music, without dance, without that kind of, what you're describing, that sort of vibrational rhythmic quality to like bring people together. And again, to tap into that sort of trance like state where you're outside of yourself, you're really not going as far as you could. And I'm so, so huge on I really believe, not to just get right into it, but like I really think that rituals need to have those trance elements. Otherwise, again, are we in church? Like, what are we doing? This
Right.
is, and it's not people's fault. Like, I get it. Like, we're trying to, a lot of people don't have a reference point for like what robust polytheist practice really is. And that's where we are fleshing out a lot of this. Um, but yeah, this is, I can go off about so much of that.
Well, again, it comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of the definition of a God, right?
Sure. Yes.
So you ask you ask a Christian what the definition of a God is, and they're going to be like, "Well, it's the all-powerful, all thing of the entire universe." It's like, okay, so that is a form of a God, right? I'll admit that.
Right.
Now, here's what you just described. You described a personification, your personification of a sphere of influence, right?
Hmm.
So your sphere of influence is the entire universe. I'm talking about some spheres of influence that actually apply to absolutely everything we do all the time.
Right.
And you're telling me I'm wrong for looking at that. Now,
Right.
do you see the problem here? So these spirits and these gods and these spheres are all kind of one thing that are happening to us and through us
Mhm.
all around us at all times. For instance, Kronos gets shit on so much by everybody,
Mhm.
and it's like, go to an aquarium. I was at an aquarium today, that's why I'm using it as an example, and look at the
Nice.
different fish, right? So these different fish over time will start to gravitate towards doing different things, right? And so
Right.
in the Greek hymn or the Orphic hymn to Kronos, they talk about him being the master of perfection and decrease. Perfection and decrease. That sounds a
Mhm.
lot like, evolution on one
Yeah.
hand and atrophy on the other. Evolution and atrophy. We all go through that, these different phases of life, right? That has to do with time.
Right.
So, perfection and decrease, once you've stepped outside of yourself, you can understand Chronos. You can understand how the crushing wheel of time is also the crushing wheel of these things get better in different ways. And if
Yeah.
all you're looking at is the negative, everything becomes negative. But we're also part of the cycle. Again, it comes down to reincarnation,
Hmm. Hmm.
reincarnation, how the spirit operates in this wheel. And without
Right.
the perceptive ability to step outside of ourselves, all of that becomes completely meaningless. It's just oppressing us, it's just stomping on us, it's just keeping us down. And that's just not the
A hundred
case.
percent. Yeah, there's a couple things that are super interesting about. There's a lot of things, but I'll start with a couple. Sort of towards the end, what you're talking about with like things happening to you and this being oppressed by. That is precisely something that we need to be, I'll use the royal we and say serious pagans need to, like put some serious thought into, because it is not, if we are going to take this on, at this stage, we need to be willing to get out of that kind of victim, self-victimizing kind of mentality. Even if like there is, I think it's important to distinguish, there's a difference between like someone who's just a polytheist, they just have multiple gods, they want to just have their shrines and go to rituals occasionally, but they're not here to lead. They're not like what that's fine. That's beautiful. And then you have like witches, people that are doing magic, people that are actually, on the astral, what have you. And then there's people who feel called to something resembling priesthood, who are doing a blend of those things and interacting with other people. And if you're doing any number of those things seriously, yeah, once again, we need to get out of that kind of just the self-victimizing thing.
Right, right. And it's been 2,000 years since we've kind of seen our ethnic religions kind of put off to the side. And if you
Yeah.
practice them, you're mortified, you're victimized, and everything else. But it
Yeah.
hasn't gone away. It
Mm-hmm.
never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I like to point to is the Art Nouveau movement, right, in the late 1800s. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very clear departure from Christian idealism
Mm-hmm.
into a natural idealism. You're incorporating all these things in nature and you're saying, hey, these things have a spirit that we can
Right.
feel and see and touch and understand in the way that we build beautiful things. And just recently, I was in Oklahoma City, right? Oklahoma City
Wonderful.
is a
I really
city
liked
built
it.
in a you've been
Mhm,
there. So it's a city built in
mhm,
a day, right? So
mhm,
the Oklahoma land rush is a great example of an unintentional, maybe, I don't know, maybe there were druids behind it, but it's an unintentional fertility ritual that happened where the entire thing was laid out in a single day. All of these people took up their claims and they started to build from the ground up. There was nothing there. All of Oklahoma was a desolate wasteland until humans started damming up the rivers and changing the climate. Like
right.
all the other examples, this is terraforming. We took
Mhm,
what was, barren and wasteland in the middle of the country, the middle of everything, and we
mhm,
started to change all of it with a single day with anybody who wanted to be there. It was an organizational principle and a fertility cult that was just explosive, right? And you could see that in Oklahoma City too. But then there was a
mhm,
certain point in time when all of that started to change. And it went
mhm,
over to, well, obviously after World War One, that was the death of Art Nouveau.
mm,
Then you were into Art Deco, and Art
mhm.
Deco started picking up, and then World War II killed that one too. Like these spirits are being killed by these wars,
Yeah,
and then after that, what was it? It was brutalism, and then
right.
brutalism became like the love that we had for ourselves and for each other then became a weapon. Like
Yeah.
You've got this love as a weapon that came through brutalism. Well, we're going to build these things, but it's not going to be pretty anymore. That costs too much money. Our values are now changing because inflation and all the rest of these factors. We have to keep spending money as much as we want to all the time, and we can't really get back to the materials that made these things beautiful. And so
Right.
we're kind of stuck in this point where we don't have access to these spirits because nothing has come along that has really inspired us. If you think about fashion trends in the last
Right.
20 years, it's all the same. We look the same that we did back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Where's the change? Where's the metamorphosis? Where's the new spirit of things? You know, Look at bell
Yeah.
bottoms versus, the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
So we're badly in need of a new spirit. And when you look at things like that, it's like you can sense it. It
Yeah.
becomes, you know, it becomes a duty to sort of
Mm-hmm.
usher in whatever's going to come and revitalize the energies.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do, is make people aware of it. It's like, look at this. Let's go. What are we doing? There's spirits out there. They're ready to talk with us. What are we doing? Let's start some art. Let's start some science. Let's start something that's going to get us going again in a holistic, vitalistic methodology.
Absolutely. I mean, that was, I think, I don't even remember how I started following everyone I follow online, but if whenever the hell it was, what I recall standing out about your account is just I like the very direct, robust, like not wishy-washy, like the future is pagan, like here's why, like I'm dead fucking serious. And I will say as a compliment, I think this is where again, like I have my love and hate thing with Twitter, X, whatever, is just like it is so, and mind you, I've accepted the fact, like, I'm very much a woman. I'm like, I'm not into the debating. It's for other people, and that's fine. But the particular flavor of that website is so goddamn hostile by nature that if you kind
Hostile.
of
Hostile.
yeah, to say the least. Mind you, if you are simply gifted at like kind of letting this stuff roll off your back and being sarcastic and and doing whatever, then rock on. People have their different gifts. I am not one of those people. I'm very visceral. I'm very in person. But long way of saying, I think you have a way with speech that is better than than Twitter could really allow for. So I hope you're obviously already doing your own thing, but I hope you keep doing more of that because that's yeah, the talking thing. I think everyone having a freaking podcast, obviously, is kind of just us trying to go back to talking to each other, not to be basic. But I do want to just say real quick, I love that you also have a positive connotation with Oklahoma City because I wasn't expecting to I went to go see Tim Dillon, who's my favorite stand-up, and I unironically think is like a modern bard, and he is Irish. I fully believe that. But I went to go see him because he wasn't coming through Dallas, and I'm not going to Houston anyways. And just every little piece of the city, like everything from like the old potholes, the sewage, like anything that was more than 5 years old was clearly like lovingly crafted. And I just spent the day after his show just kind of walking around in this like light reverie because I'm like, I can't remember the last time I've seen something like that. And it was raining, it was quiet. I'm like, oh my God, the streets are clean, things are beautiful. We don't have to live the way we've been living. Holy shit, this is so nice. So it's really lovely.
See, I want to start a campaign called Trespass OKC, right? Because there are so many
Please.
beautiful Art Nouveau buildings with all of these
Hmm.
details built into the roofs and stuff of these places that are just so
Yeah.
lovingly crafted by
Yeah.
clearly concerned artisans that are trying to bring spirit into what they're doing. And
Yeah.
people don't even realize that that's what art is you're bringing spirit into what you're doing. It's not just a flat surface. This is art. This is connecting nature and all of these different things into what you want people to see. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you understand it immediately. You just have to
Hmm.
understand the intent. The
Hmm.
intent is to connect you with what they're
Hmm.
seeing. And that's a beautiful thing, especially like the scissor tail is the official bird of Oklahoma City, and they have this scissor tail bridge with this massive X sitting on top
Hmm.
of their highway. right? And it's
Mm,
just this metal structure that just sticks up out of everything. And it's like that's supposed to represent this bird that is their official bird, and they loved it so much that they made a
yeah.
bridge out of it. And all of these people take their locks, right? And they write
Mhm.
the initials of the person they love on that lock, and they take it over to Scissortail Bridge and they put that padlock right on that bridge itself. So you can walk over and see all of these relationships sort of connected to the land itself. And once you see that, there's no unseeing it. Like people have that connection, and there's a lot of dirt and a lot of trash and a lot of people that don't care about that city anymore, and they think that it can all come back if we just build a new stadium. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
ridiculous kind of modernist concepts that are polluting
Mhm.
the city, which was once just this place for art and beauty and connection, a city built in a day. That's the fertility right there, the union of opposites that I think a lot of people are missing out because, you know, where is it written down? Nobody's writing this stuff down. They're feeling it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's so there's so much to that. And I think that that's where I think that's a simultaneous the ordeal and the challenge and the reward of I know paganism is so broad, but any kind of serious paganism because we're not being handed like a how-to guide. And in my path in Druidry, they very wisely, they were very like there was a connection. I think it's pretty clear, like there was an established connection between various Celtic tribes and the Greeks, like Julius Caesar himself said, like these people are literate, like they're talking about Pythagoras, like they have a concept of, transmigration of the soul, like not just a passive, oh, they happen to agree, like they're familiar with the philosophy and they use writing for housekeeping, but they didn't write down their magic on purpose because they were trying to avoid this, like, it becoming a crutch. You're not supposed to just like read a bunch of commandments and go, oh, well, that's my job done, like the ordeal is the point. So that's what we got to do.
Plato Plato had so many gripes against the written word. He says everybody's writing nowadays and nobody's memory is worth a goddamn. You know, he's
If
saying
only he knew.
that not
Yeah.
only is, and now we're talking about computers where everybody just forgets everything because they've got it written down somewhere. They,
Hmm.
they had memory palaces that were connected to the gods. These vast arrays of associations that now we're trying to rediscover, they
Right.
had and
Right.
they were taught as a means of language and a means of communication that now it's just sort of like, well, it's just words.
Right.
Are they ever just words? Are they ever just words? The
Right.
the thing I get to is what are thoughts made out of? What are they made out of? Because if we don't get to the point where we're thinking about what makes thoughts real, then how could we ever actually consider what makes reality real? Because on a certain level, thoughts are connected to reality through actions, of course, but
Mhm.
thoughts are the prima materia of actions. That's the alchemy of it. This is where thoughts become real. That's an action. So if you can influence thoughts, you influence actions necessarily. Philosophers were on that. The problem is what if you weaponize philosophy? What if you weaponize love? What if you weaponize the concepts that then influence those actions? And
Right.
that's where we start to kill the vitalism a little bit, is we can start to influence people through their thoughts, and then all the actions sort of fall flat and we sort of feel trapped in our own minds and our own
Right.
bodies because we don't have the energy anymore. It's
That's
exhausting.
where,
Thinking is
yeah. No, it
exhausting.
is. Yeah. Yeah. Just fighting that, all of that you're detailing, and fighting to stay anything resembling sovereign with all that going on is a battle in and of itself. And I will say something that I really something I like that one of the Romans did say about the Celts or the Druids was that they he said it's a longer quote, but something to the effect of that they spoke the same language as the gods, or that they do ritual to the effect of they speak the same language as the gods. And I think to your point of like earlier, what even is a god? What is speaking that language? What is that like? That is part of what we have to invest real energy into. But yeah, obviously, I'm right there with you with all the vitalism, all of that, and I think it's not. I don't know. I go back and forth about it, um, but I think people are at least catching on to things that matter of like, okay, beauty matters. Beauty is not shallow. Like that inspiration you're talking about of like not being totally demoralized by everything that's being force fed into you. Um, that's not like a trivial thing.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, strength training becomes its own meditation. You know,
Hmm.
this is how you purify those thoughts that seem to plague you all the time and create the
Oh
union
yeah.
of opposites. Is because
Hmm.
when you're using your body, new thoughts come into your life, right?
Hmm.
Because now as you're focusing on these different parts and you're scheduling these different muscles that now you're training and you're metamorphosizing,
Hmm.
your thoughts necessarily have to change in the process. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize strength is a meditation.
Oh yeah. God, I mean, I say especially emphatically because like you can be lifting for a while, and like yesterday I had, I don't want to say a near death experience, but like my first time going, this is, I don't know if this is a contradiction, but basically past failure. So like I usually train solo, but I was training with a coach, and I was pushed beyond what I could do alone to where like I'm getting helped to bring it up, so I have to fight it back on the way down. And there was, I will tell you, not a single fucking thought in my brain. I was just I went some, you have to go somewhere else to do certain things, and it's not something you can just talk about or think about. Like that's where again that ordeal, that living life at any cost, I think it's such a but it's such a payoff because like not to be cliche, but I went into it not having had the best weekend, just like a lot of mundane muggle stuff piling up. I'm stressed, I'm whatever, and then I repeatedly just go to failure or past failure, and it's like it resets something in my brain where it just reshakes you into like I'm alive, I'm strong, I can do things, and like skill, whatever it is. Like for me, like I love lifting, but I really believe that like honing different skills, especially as pagans, that's how it's just giving us more ways to interface with the divine. The more languages you can speak, the more skills you have physically. I mean, in the Celtic, we have a literal god, Lu, the long-armed, that like is allowed into the Tuatha De Danann, into the race of the gods, because he's a Renaissance man, essentially. So I think that's a lesson in like, no, really, like do all the things. Like I'll stop yapping, but yeah, that's the idea.
Is it jack of all trades and master of none, or is it jack of all trades and master of all? Right? Because
It's the really the
at a
latter.
certain
Yeah.
point, right? Because at a
Hmm.
certain point, what you're doing is the body can make up for the faults of the mind, and the mind
Yes.
can make up for the faults of the body. And unfortunately, we're such a cerebral culture that we think
Yeah.
everything can be cured with just a new thought or a new whatever, but the
Yeah.
body is just so neglected.
Severely. And I'm so, so passionate about that because like by all means, there are times where like I sort of have a predilection for collecting like witchy grandmas. I love elders, I love older women. We're gonna be that one day. So it's like it benefits to listen, and also I just they're cool. They've always lived some life and whatever. So sometimes, yeah, we do need to sit down with an elder, not some random person with a fucking psych degree, but a real elder, sorry. Um, but there's times where it's just not it. Because, you know, like I'm from Los Angeles. Sorry. Like I am from Los Angeles. So I have been to therapy, and I can say confidently, maybe one of them was a real elder. And a lot of the time, looking back, I'm like, damn, I didn't need to be sitting in a room navel gazing with that person. I needed more money, a different car. I needed to be lifting. I needed to be going outside. I needed new friend. Like there's a time and place for the exchange for that, but it's not someone that's just like it's okay. Like just keep doing what you're doing. Just stay in your room. Like don't. Yeah. Yeah. Christ.
I found the Greek word I was looking for. It's omphaloskepsis.
Okay.
Omphaloskepsis, which is the Greek word for navel gazing. So you've got omphalos, which is the navel, and then you've got the skepsis, which is looking. And if you think about the modern term for skeptic, you're
Mhm.
doubting your own existence by navel gazing, by
God,
ignoring
good
the
point.
body and just focusing on yourself. You're kind of in that trap of self doubt through navel
Yeah.
gazing.
It just there's so much of like people just repeatedly getting in our own way. And I think to sort of go back to even like how do you get that initial spark, that initial flame? Just do something. It almost doesn't matter what it is. Just start doing something that like applies your energy outside of like doom scrolling, like, and the fact that that is where the fucking bar mind you, that's where the bar is, and I've still have to I've learned to kind of just focus on myself and not just scream about the things I don't like all the time because it doesn't help anyone, but I find it very telling that every time I'm like, "Hey, we should have some dignity and not just, like, sit around, like, doing this all the time." It's like, "Well, what if, like what if it's my comfort thing? What if I make money online?" I'm like, "Okay, who cares, by the way? Who cares? Why do I have to personally co-sign everything you do? Why, like, but the fact that you're seeking my validation should tell you everything you need to know because you know it's a
Right,
waste of your time. So don't ask me to because I'm not going to,
right.
by the way. And also, I'm just some person. Like my opinion should not matter to anyone about anything at all. Like, even if we're like, no matter what, if you happen to find it useful, then cool. But I don't talk expecting anyone to do what I say.
What I would suggest to anyone before they start the iron therapy, because the gym can be a little intimidating, is to start with
Sure.
rock therapy. If you can go out
Ooh,
into the woods and find a rock that you can move that rock from one side of the forest to the other because
sure.
nobody's telling you not to, and there's no reason not to do it because once you do that, you will feel that accomplishment and that drive and that spirit that comes not only from the spirit of the place, but also comes
Yes.
from your accomplishment, even if it's seemingly meaningless. You've moved that rock from one side to the other, or build a wall around a tree that you love. Isn't that an interesting idea? You find a tree that you love, build a wall around it, sacredize that tree. What I did recently is I went out to the swamps of Wisconsin where I live at, and I
Mm,
cut
mhm.
down a beech tree from the middle of the swamps. And I took that beech tree back to my apartment and I built an easel out of it. So now I have an easel that's made out of a tree that I got from the middle of the swamps that I had to carry back. And it wasn't a small tree, let me tell you. And I
I
took
love
that
it.
thing and I built something out of it. Not because
Mhm.
anybody told me to or because there was some sort of plan involved. I just felt the urge and I created that easel. And now I paint on that easel that I made out of a tree from the woods. So it's something that
Beautiful.
is intensely personal. Well, also, it
Mhm.
connects me because all trees. This is something that Christians don't understand. All trees are the connection between the earth and the
Yeah.
sky, and it's a beautiful thing. And they love us. The trees love us. Asking permission from a tree. This is something I learned a long time ago in paganism, and they'll say, "Yes, I will be a part of your life for as long as you'll have me, because I feel connected to you." So you will feel that connection. They are not opposed to becoming part of your life.
I love it.
It's
I
not like
love
you're
the
harming
say it again.
what is eternal. It's not like you're harming what is eternal.
Right, right, precisely. No, I love the focus on the relationship too between like us and the tree, us and the nature, us and the spirit of the place. Like that state of being in relationship is it's crucial to druidry, but it's also like I think you can just take that into any kind of animistic, like seriously animist sort of perspective of like we have some kind of relationship to all life at all times. Doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everything and everyone, but we're both here together. We're both alive on the same plane. But before I go off on that, are you a rock lifter? Is that a thing you enjoy doing, or just a good idea?
I have done. I have done several rock lifts in my time, going out into the woods and just finding these things. And then one of the things that I found in Greek uh, paganism is that they used to, like, have these strongman competitions where they would just lift these massive rocks and then write the person's name on those things and say, this person lifted this rock at this time, and it was incredible. You know,
Yeah,
that's how they were, you know, experiencing the spirit is through these feats of strength.
totally. No, it's so I find it funny for one. I don't know if you follow him at all, but there's a gentleman that blogs and kind of shares under Caffeine and Philosophy, I want to say Chris, who also seems to draw, he's obviously from the name suggests like focus on philosophy, but he draws more from Hellenic polytheism, the Greco-Roman, and I believe he finally got into a real gym recently, but for the past like several, I don't know how long, I don't follow him that closely, but he was just out there lifting rocks. And I'm like, what is it with you Greek dudes? The Hellenic pagan dudes and the lifting of rocks, which I'm very for. I just find it a cool connection. You guys
Right.
are communing with the
I
rock
think what it
spirit.
I think what it was the cyclopean, they call it cyclopean, sculpture or the architecture, right? So there are all these massive, megalithic structures that the
Yeah.
Greeks called cyclopean because they believed that the cyclopses were lifting these rocks and putting them into place. And I think there was a bond where they're like, well, can I do that too? Let me try it out. And they
Yeah.
saw these cyclopses as connected to Neptune, or the water god, because all of the cyclopses came through Poseidon, right? They were from his line. So these were like an ancient watery concept. And in terms of water and spirit, there's
Hmm.
a huge connection there, right? So Oceanus and Tethys were supposedly the bringers of all of the line of water nymphs, or these water spirits, to the world. And we see that in mermaids and all the rest of these other things that sort of pass down that line. But they had a connection to the spirits of water as well as the streams. The streams were definitely important in terms of their naming and how they had children and all these other things that is so foreign to us today. It's like, well, what do
Right.
you how does a river have a kid? It's completely foreign to them as a concept.
Mhm.
But when you apply the same definition of a god and understand that, hey, maybe there's a spirit of a place that then gets transferred to a person who's from that
Yeah.
place. For
Yeah.
example, my friend Nick is discovering all these people from his neighborhood back in New York are all into the same stuff he is.
Uh-huh.
He's observing that there's a spirit of a place that was affecting more than just himself. So now, he's an occultist, and he's finding all these other occultists are into the same
Hmm.
thing from his same neighborhood. That's not an
That's
accident,
awesome.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
But the Romans
I
called it
find
the genus loci.
precisely. No, and you use the exact same phrase that I often use when I'm teaching actually about Druidry. You said, I think deceptively simple. And I think that's so true of a lot of this stuff where like maybe from the outside, like there are obviously there's levels to occultism, what have you, that like, yeah, your random uninitiated person is simply not going to be able to interface with. But there's so many building blocks to it that like people should not overthink or like underestimate themselves. Like it's based on reality, it's based on real life. That like paganism, again, I'm saying that very broadly. Serious paganism is like real people reckoning with life as it is. So it's not like the building blocks are very accessible in my opinion. Ugh.
Reckoning. That's the key, because reckoning has so many. Okay, it's again, like you were talking about, confrontation.
Hmm.
Confrontation is part of reckoning, and also
Yes.
thinking is part of reckoning, right? We live in a hungry universe. We have to reckon with that when we're
Hmm.
faced with our survival, right? We look at, pregnancies and bringing on new life. It's a reckoning. It's a dealing with the future in a
Yeah.
way that is transformational to us. And
Yeah.
that's what all reckoning is it's the dealing with the future on the grounds as it exists. And a lot of people have missed that when it comes to talking about these things, and they think it's airy fairy, new agey crap. It's about confronting reality.
Absolutely. I just, and this is kind of it's easier said than done, but it also kind of has to be said. This is where to do any of this with any depth, you need a level of self-awareness. You need to pull your head out of your ass and go, okay, for one, why am I doing this? Like, what is drawing me to want to practice? What am I bringing to it? And again, like, what is my idea of deity? What is my idea of ritual? Like, what do I think I'm doing? And hopefully you're like willing to pull your head out of your ass enough to like build on whatever you're bringing initially. Because like I shamelessly like all I've been through, and this is years ago by now. I settled on Druidry about a decade ago, but I went through as a teenager like every phase imaginable. I still the only one I'll stand by is Taoism. I think it's still very meaningful. I just needed more than that. But I was like a Levian Satanist and I was a Wiccan and I did all the things. And then I was like, all right, a lot of this is very made it's either made up in a way I don't like, or it's like, okay, why am I just staying in the same mythology that I thought I was rejecting? This is not really a step up. To my credit, I was 15 years old, so like you build hopefully. But this is where like people need to have. I get that not everyone has communities in person, and sometimes the ones you do suck, and it is what it is. But this is where you really can't just sit around cooped up in your room. You need to find some kind of kindred people, spirits to talk to just bounce ideas off each other, if nothing else, and also to just almost kind of you're talking about like the spirit of things to keep the spirit like living breathing, not just like okay, the book says do this, like isn't that not what we're doing? I thought that wasn't what we're doing here. Yeah.
Right. As you transform the world around you, you're transformed yourself.
Yes.
And in the same way that, you're looking, you're also finding. And you might not
Hmm.
get all the answers that you want, but you'll be on the path to finding those answers as you go along. And the key is not to give up. It's not to
Hmm.
give up. So you may hit that dead end, but you've learned.
Hmm.
And that's a transformation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I love the sort of symbol of the labyrinth kind of for that. And you can't see it because I'm growing my hair out. I have it on my head. But I love I got sort of years into my practice when I should have maybe known better that some things like don't have a cut and dry answer. I got very obsessed with labyrinths and I'm like, what do they mean? Well, what are they for? What are you doing? Like, what are these ritual sites like where there's these big labyrinths? What are they doing there? And I kept kind of bashing my head against the wall of like, I'm not finding an answer. There's no, and I was like, oh fuck, like you're supposed to you're supposed to walk it. You make the choice to either walk it or not, and that's what life is, and that's what serious practice is. You choose to either walk through it or not. And I will say this is on the maybe my wooiest comment of the night, but like for me, a dream ritual that I really want to piece together is I'm not the world's most Hellenic inspired person, but I'm very, very drawn to the Eleusinian mysteries. Because I'm like cursed to be intrigued by things that don't have any record. But I'm interested in crafting some kind of like Celtic Hellenic fusion ritual, like inspired by that, and sort of like the silence aspects and the ordeal aspects of it, and the ecstatic, what have you, because like what we know about Samhain, what we sort of work with during the dark half of the year, there's a lot of sort of like themes in common. So I I find that like as much as I love the Celtic stuff and I hope that, like people can see the beauty of it and what have you, I tend to just anecdotally get along with people that are either Hellenic inspired or they have more of a ceremonial background, which is funny because like I find it really insufferable and it's not for me, but I like the people. Um, so I have certain practitioners that are, I think like as the years pass, we keep building ideas into this dream ritual, which hopefully happens. And that's my woo woo comment of the night. That's what I want to do.
Well, I think you're on it. If you haven't looked into Asclepius yet, the
Mm-hmm.
Asclepian is the key to really understanding the Eleusinian mysteries. So Asclepians were these temples of healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Asclepius, god of healing, son of Apollo. And you would go into the underworld where they would put you
Mm-hmm.
on these cots, right? And so they would sleep you underground and then release a bunch of snakes, and the snakes would crawl under your cots. And
I
the
love it.
snake was this symbol of transformation because, as it sheds its skin, it becomes sort of a new being. And so that's how you would overcome your sickness is by sleeping in. This is where we get the term sleeping in the temple. And as you're sleeping in the temple, this is where you would go into the underworld and then come back renewed as sort of like healed of your illnesses. And it was a dream ritual, right? So the, during your dream, you would be either visited by Asclepius or his daughters, and they would tell you about your illness and what you can do to overcome it. And the guy, Asclepius is an asteroid, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the named asteroids right there. And so the sleeping prophet, man, I always forget his name, but he was back in the 1920s. He wrote a lot about Atlantis. Anyways,
I should know. Mm-hmm.
his right, but he has a center down in Virginia Beach. It's so weird that I can completely forget his name all the time, right? But
Uh,
if you look up Sleeping Prophet, you'll find out who I'm talking about. His
I'm
chart is
looking.
is fully right. Sleeping Prophet, it'll
Edgar
pop right up.
Case?
But he
Is
Edgar
that it?
Casey, there we go.
Edgar
So Edgar
Case? There you
Casey's right. Edgar Casey's chart is all based in Asclepius and all of these healing god motifs. And it just makes so much sense that he's, in a trance, asleep, and then channeling that energy of this thing. And it all has to do with the underworld, right? He's transcending the underworld, transcending just the idea of death and rebirth and all
go.
the rest of these Orphic ideas out of the
Mm-hmm.
cave into the light, sort of thing. And so he would diagnose people of their illnesses because he's closer to the place where, illnesses don't exist anymore, is after life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in that same vein that the Eleusinian mysteries take place.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Eleusinian mysteries is where we get the goddess Eleutheria, which is the goddess of freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Eleutheria influences the goddess Columbia, which is the goddess of America, right? So Eleutheria to Columbia is not a very long trip at all. So
Not at
Libertas
all.
is the Roman version of Eleutheria. So it's all in that same vein and has to do with transcending death. For
Mm-hmm.
the Druids, I know in Uncle Bucky's Big Blue Book about
Mm-hmm.
Wicca, he talks
Mm-hmm.
about the rituals where they've got the witch's cradle, where
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
bound up in the trees. Same idea for like 3 days or whatever, and then you come
Yeah.
out on the other side of the underworld. It's
I'm
all right
so
there.
drawn to all of
Same
that.
stuff.
Yeah. People don't want to suffer anymore. People just don't want to suffer anymore, but they need to. I'm so passionate about that. It's so important. And it's not like an arbitrary edginess thing. Like these are that ordeal aspect and that other world. So there's this saying that those who go in the Celtic mysticism, that those who go to the other world emerge either mad or a poet. And again, that idea of poetry not just as like cute rhyming words, but like you're syncretizing that ordeal, that transformation into something on this plane that you can connect with other people about. Um, so I love that, like, basically every initiatic rite, every initiatic working we have involves, serious suffering of some kind. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't mean you have to be getting flogged necessarily, although that is an option, but something that restricts your physical, something confrontational, once again, that pushes you to somewhere else. I really feel like if you're not involving that in your rituals, you're really not going as far as you could be. But make people suffer again is not always what people want to hear in rituals. So I keep it to myself.
Well, the labyrinth has a big deal to play with that, especially
Mm-hmm.
in Greek mythology. You're talking about the
Mm-hmm.
this beast that lives inside of the labyrinth, and they've got all of these motifs around the idea of coming in, slaying the beast, and exiting changed. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That beast
Mm-hmm.
is that part of yourself that is, uncontrollable, and slaying him is slaying the part of yourself that feels out of control. Feeling out of
Yeah.
control is where a lot of people become discouraged and completely, dissociative from reality,
Right.
from their own lives. Being able to say, I am now in control no matter what happens, because in here
Right.
is the only reality that's real to me. That's the labyrinth. We are in the labyrinth. We are in the body. It's spirit
Yeah.
in the flesh. It's not apart from the flesh.
Precisely. No, I love that so strongly, and I think it's so important for us to find a way to sort of thrust ourselves into that kind of experience. And I will say, to tie it back to lifting somewhat, I mean, that's when we talk about the meditative quality and the alchemical quality, you are forcing yourself into an extreme meditative state where, like, you cannot afford to, I mean, you can, like, mind you, I'm not saying like everything has to be your biggest PR, but like if you're moving actual weight, you can't hurt yourself. Like you can't hurt yourself if you drop it or you fuck up or your form is bad or whatever. So to have that, I'm losing my train of thought again, but you get the idea. It
Well, what I've
happens.
seen while I've been here in Phoenix, Arizona, is that there are these overpasses, and they have a lot of symbols here, just a ton.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
Cocopelli, the guy who's playing the flute, that's one of their symbols. They put
Hmm.
those on the side of these bridges and stuff, but they've also got a labyrinth. And there's a little guy that they put on the labyrinth, and it's all over the city. And I haven't discovered what
Hmm.
the mystery is behind that yet, but I guarantee you, as soon as I do, I will let you know. I'm obsessed with labyrinths
Please
too. I think
do.
they're amazing.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've been to Arizona a handful of times. The desert is like a terrain that I have yet to fully befriend. I will say that, which is odd because I'm from California, but I also don't like California. So, anyways, um, no, yeah, there's a lot to it, and it's still, even when I kind of, so I have this whole fascination with like uh sort of like there's this Catholic monk, Rabanus Maurus, I want to say, who did all these incredible like labyrinth paintings and art. And my favorite one from him is, it's very like this deeply directly symbolic. I'll have to find the title, where you have sort of the labyrinth, I believe, in the heavens, and it's coming down in the form of the Axis Mundi to the querent who's like opening the door, and I'm like, oh my god, like you got it, you got it. So, oh
Exactly. And
yeah,
there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time in there. And, time
yeah,
and rhythm and labyrinths, that's sort of the symbolic nature of where we are and the changing of these ages. Maybe we're coming to the end of one labyrinth and entering into another, you know?
totally.
So I think this has been a great episode. I'd love to have you back on. It's just the spirit is strong, and we've got to get more strength in our spirits. And the only way we can do that is
Absolutely.
by training the body to just love the struggle. Love the struggle,
Yes.
people. That's
One
so
must imagine
important.
Sisyphus happy. Well, thank you for
Exactly,
having
exactly.
me. Thank you for having me. It's been absolutely a pleasure. Hopefully I ranted somewhat coherently, but I'd be happy to do it again sometime when we can.
Absolutely. We got to get that spirit up, people. Get out there, move those rocks, lift that iron, engage in the
Yes.
alchemy, because that's when you're going to find that inspiration. It's going to come to you because the spirits don't go to people who don't do anything. They don't
Yes.
do that, nothing doers. So you've got to get your body involved. That's the
Yes.
key. That's the key. Well,
Jump
thank
in.
you guys. This has been another episode of The Headless Giant, and I hope you come back and check us out again soon. Thank you very much.